Welcome to this episode of Athletic Training Chat. On this episode, we have Austin doing a interview when he was down at Vanderbilt for what ultimately ended up being too short of a time given everything that's going on in the world. But he is interviewing their baseball athletic training, Chris Matarazzo. Great, an interesting episode about working towards your quote-unquote dream job, whatever that may be in your reference. A lot of depth and detail about what that can look like and how patience is ultimately going to be a virtue when it comes to getting there. As always, we are powered by Mueller Sports Medicine. Great time to start looking at your shopping for this summer and next fiscal year. Make sure to give them a look. They have a lot of good products and ones that work really, really well for what is ultimately nice to your budget. So we highly recommend checking them out. With that, please enjoy this episode, and we will catch you guys later.
All right, welcome to this episode of AT Chat. Happy National Athletic Training Month. It is 2nd of March here when we are recording this. Don't know when this will come out yet, but for that month. Just a reminder, we are powered by Mueller Sports Medicine. Big thank you to those guys. They are super into it and super involved in the athletic training profession, and we couldn't do this without them. So if you have a second, go check out Mueller Sports Medicine. We have a really fun episode for you today. I am here with Chris Matarazzo. He is the athletic trainer at Vanderbilt University. He works with their baseball team. And if you know anything about them, they're pretty good. He's actually my preceptor right now, so we'll end up talking a little bit about that. But I will actually give it over to Chris. Let him fill in the background. He's been at Vanderbilt for a couple of years, but he's been kind of all over the place. He's been at Florida, Penn State, but I will just kind of let him talk about that. So, Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Austin.
Yeah, so I guess if you kind of want to fill in kind of how you got to this point.
Yeah. So I started my athletic training career, I think similar to a lot of athletic trainers and just being around sports. I played football in high school. I played baseball and soccer when I was younger. So sports has always been a huge part of my life. And then just coming to the realization that there's an opportunity for me to be able to do that as a profession, to continue around sports was athletic training seemed like a no-brainer. I like being able to help people too, so it worked out well. I was fortunate enough to know that I wanted to do athletic training while I was in high school, so I was able to apply to programs specific to athletic training. So I went to Springfield College, and I was there for 4 years. Completed my bachelor's in science there, and then went to grad school for 2 years at Penn State, where that kind of introduced me to the Division I setting. I got to work with a multitude of teams while I was there, but most specifically with baseball, with men and women's volleyball and football. And then after there, I went to Florida for 2 years working with baseball and softball there, and that's kind of where I really found my passion for baseball. And then it's kind of translated here into Vanderbilt. I got to work with track for a couple of years here before ultimately switching over here in the winter break.
That's right. So first season with them.
It is. Fortunately for me, I've been around baseball, especially at this level before, so it hasn't been too much new.
So I think that's actually kind of a pretty good segue to one of the first questions I have for you here is, I know that we've talked about it before, like you knew that baseball was always kind of where you wanted to get back into, but like you said, you've worked track and field, you've worked some of those different areas. So I guess what I know for a lot of it, especially me being hopefully a new grad really soon, is we want that job right away, that dream job. So I guess any advice for new graduates who are just coming out of school, trying to find a job, we all have our goals and stuff, but you've been around a while, you've been around different areas. So any advice to people looking for their first jobs?
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty loaded question. It can be tough to find that first job too, especially when you are just coming out. You're competing with a lot of people, some that have more experience, some that have equal experience, some that have unique experience. I really, as much as I do enjoy working baseball, and I think I knew that, I really try not to tell a lot of our new professionals to really hone in on a sport right off the bat, because especially throughout your clinical assignments, you probably haven't gotten the opportunity to really kind of hit a bunch of different sports. So I mean, if you would ask me when I left grad school, I wanted to work football. I wanted to be that football athletic trainer. And I took an internship with baseball because it seemed like a good opportunity. And that's kind of where I found that I like baseball. And even still working with track after that, I did enjoy working with track like quite a bit. And so there are just when you find a good opportunity, I think you kind of know it, and you take that. And if you work hard enough while you're there, if you show people that you're capable of doing just about anything, I think athletic trainers can kind of transition from sport to sport without much difficulty. There's always going to be a little bit of a transition, like a learning period, especially if it's a sport you've never been around, but the healthcare is the same. Treating patients is the same too. So I guess I wouldn't say lock in too much, because if coming out of school without a ton of experience, it's going to be really hard to find a job that you can really, if you're going to narrow it down to such a specific. Now, if it works out for you, great.
Yeah, I think that's some great advice right there. So being at Vanderbilt here, I don't know if everyone knows, but Vanderbilt is kind of unique in the fact that the way they're set up is they employ the medical model of care versus, I guess, what we typically see a little more often is kind of that athletic model where we have athletic trainers underneath the athletic director and kind of within the athletic department itself. So I guess, could you explain a little bit how Vanderbilt set up and kind of how that works out for you as an athletic trainer?
Yeah, so the athletic trainers here at Vanderbilt are employed through the medical center. I've only been here for 3 years, and it's been like that since I've been here, but I think it's gone back many years before that. So really what that kind of looks like is we're still housed in the athletic department here, or within the athletic facilities. I have an office here in the baseball facility. I also have an office in Magoogan in our main athletic training room. So we spend our whole day in the athletic department, similar to most of the other athletic training staffs across the country. But so our team physicians, our HR process all goes through the medical center. And it's really nice for a couple reasons. One, we are tied in. We use Epic. We use their medical records. So we're able to communicate with our physicians much easier through that process. We're tied into a lot of the different departments up there, whether it's sports medicine, orthopedics, or different like cardiovascular, anything we can get in there pretty quickly. And then what everybody talks about too is just kind of having that autonomy from the athletic department, and hopefully not having non-medical people influence medical decisions. Fortunately at Vanderbilt here, I've never felt like we've had that. Even our coaching staffs, our strength and conditioning staffs, our administrators are always very supportive about what we do as athletic trainers and what our team physicians do, and our physical therapists. But you hear stories about it at other schools where so-and-so is pressuring somebody to play earlier than not, and potentially someone feels threatened that their job may be on the line if they don't kind of go along with maybe what a non-medical decision or what medical decision is kind of against. So we don't have that here. I think the medical center protects us from that a little bit, and then just having good coaching staffs is also a beneficial too. So we kind of get the two-headed approach of just being able to provide optimal care for our student athletes.
Yeah, no, definitely. And as you were talking about that, I just thought back to, I think came out probably either late or mid fall, about that article on ESPN where you saw a survey of athletic trainers, and where they were discussing feeling pressure from that coaching staff. So people to see that you don't feel that here is a really nice thing. And I guess the medical model has been talk, especially with like the NATA and how we want to expand that. And that's been one of Tori Lingley, the NATA's president's big pushes, is to kind of push that medical model. I know that at Northwestern they kind of do that as well.
Mm-hmm.
I guess, do you see it expanding more? I know like Vanderbilt here, big conference, SEC, but still at a lot of places we don't see that as much. Athletic training is still kind of housed under the athletic department. So do you see that growing in the near future?
Yeah, that's a really tough decision, especially at this level. It's going to depend on the university and kind of how they approach that. I've been a part of some staffs where it wasn't the medical model, but the administrators gave pretty good autonomy to their sports medicine department. So that's kind of tough. I mean, you do see some of these schools. I think it was Kansas recently just kind of transitioned their strength and conditioning, because as kind of athletics grows, they're almost they're taking a much larger role with kind of the health and fitness, and some schools believe that they belong within the sports medicine umbrella too, which I like. That looks good. That helps promote interdisciplinary care of the student athletes. That's a decision that's going to be made much higher above my level, as far as if other schools are going to continue to move into this medical model. I think it works very well here. I know, like you said, Northwestern. I believe UNC. There are a ton of private schools that continue to do that as well. It's just whatever you choose, you got to make sure, obviously, that healthcare decisions are being made by healthcare professionals.
Right. And I think you make a really good point there, as kind of leads into our next question about almost like pros and cons of this model. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the things that you really pointed out, and what I've seen here with you guys, is kind of that interprofessional care. Mm-hmm. So in some places, having that PT right there, easy communication that you can get your athletes in to them right away. And you have dietitians right there. And I think that's a big thing. I think from what I've seen here, I've only been here a couple months, but it looks like it's working really well here. And it looks like it's a good relationship that kind of helps improve that student-athlete health.
For sure.
I guess continuing on that, we talked a little bit more about the pros, so the autonomy, the interprofessional care. Are there any, maybe not even issues, but things that you find a little more difficult working within this model?
For sure. Because we're hospital employees, Vanderbilt's one of the biggest hospital, or the biggest hospital in the state. So there are a lot of training exercises, different online courses that we have to take to be compliant with the medical center. And as a healthcare professional, and I'm not saying that it's not good to be learning and training, but there's a lot of the stuff that just doesn't necessarily apply to our setting here as athletic trainers. So we're going through a lot of hospital policies that like we need to know what their different coding systems are for evacuation, and the amount of times that we're over there in the building to be evacuating people is just non-existent, because we're over here in the athletics building. So there are times where, and it's a minute detail, where we got to spend an extra hour or two going through some HR stuff that sometimes makes you want to bang your head on the wall. But that would probably be my only drawback, really.
Okay. So I guess kind of leaving more the medical model and heading back to kind of your career, you're still young in this profession. And one thing you recently told me is you've gotten a little bit more involved with TAX, which is the Tennessee Athletic Trainers Society. And I think, especially, I know as a student, we find it really hard to get involved in. Mm-hmm. So for me, it would be WADA, the Wisconsin Athletic Trainers Association. I guess, why do you see benefit? And especially for new grads who are like, I don't need this. This is for all the old people, everyone who is advocating for all this stuff. I'm just trying to go about my way. Can you, I guess, almost like pitch me why, as young professionals and even as students, it's important to be involved in those associations?
Yeah, well, one, it's a phenomenal networking opportunity. I get to work with some athletic trainers that I wouldn't normally come across, because most of the athletic trainers I work with are strictly at the collegiate D1 level. So now I get the opportunity to meet with some high school athletic trainers, some non-traditional setting in terms of industry. So it's nice just to meet new people is a big one. The other thing too is, and this is a relatively new role for me as well, I've only been on the communications committee for about 2 months. But the more you get involved with state organizations, with national organizations, the more you get to have a say or an input, or even just get to hear about where athletic training is going as a profession. So I find it really hard to hear people complain about certain things, whether they're not happy. And this is not specific to athletic training, it can be anything. But if you're going to complain about a situation not working out for you, or you find it's not ideal, the best way to kind of go about changing that is to do what you can to do something about it. So if you're actively just sitting around complaining and not changing anything, then I don't value that very much. So, but being on the TATS communication, I get to at least kind of see what our state organization is doing, and further down the line as I move up, maybe have a little bit more say in kind of how we go about doing some things. But it's nice being able to be a part of the voice of athletic training.
Right. All right. So I guess long day for you, long day for us. So I guess we'll kind of move right into our AT5 questions now, unless you have anything else to add on any of those topics.
No.
All right. So first question here for you. Where do you see athletic training going in the next 5 to 10 years? So almost set the example. We know that right now, athletic training is making that transition to entry-level master's programs. Mm-hmm. And I think we've talked about that a little bit. So I guess, where do you personally see our profession going?
Yeah, I think it's exciting. To tell you the truth, the more I think about it, the more I don't really know. And when I say that, I don't say that as a bad thing. Like I think it's exciting. We do have this entry-level master's. We're also starting, I think athletic trainers in general are just solidifying our role in the healthcare community a little bit stronger. You're seeing all over on Twitter and different media sites of athletic trainers doing great things in terms of really being able to help their athletes, and not just athletes, their patients, getting them back to whether it's working in get work off of a workers' comp, or saving somebody's lives, whether it's their athlete, their patient, or just somebody kind of in the stands, or just on an airplane, whatever it may be. And I think that attention is just giving us a better giving other healthcare professionals a better understanding of what we're capable of doing. And as we continue to expand into different settings, that also, like, people are becoming more aware of what athletic trainers are, and not just a trainer, where we're able to do quite a bit in terms of healthcare and assisting our patients. So I think we're growing. You see people working with their state organizations, with national legislators, as trying to increase our scope of practices and just more defined scope of practices. So I do think athletic training in even the next 5 years is going to look completely different in a good way. I think that people are starting to recognize us more. We're having a stronger footing, and it's exciting to see.
Right. I guess this question is actually a pretty natural segue here as well. So if you could change or eliminate one thing about the athletic training profession, whether that be a modality, whether that be a common practice, a mindset, what would that be for you?
That's another tough question. I think that we're guilty of doing this to ourselves a lot as athletic trainers, is just this almost this bragging about how many hours we've worked in a given week or in a year, or how long we've gone without a day off. And by nature, I think athletic trainers are just very dedicated to our patients and making sure that our athletes, our individuals that we work with are well taken care of. But I do think a lot of people tend to sacrifice their personal time to do that. And then at times some athletic trainers can make others feel guilty about not, or maybe expanding their personal life, taking some me time. And I think that as an athletic training profession, we need to get better about doing that, because you can't help other people if you're not taking care of yourself first too.
Right.
So just, I think promoting personal health and taking care of yourself is something that athletic trainers for sure could be better at.
Right. Work on that balance a little bit more.
Absolutely. And there's not I don't think there's a negative connotation for wanting to take care of yourself at times. I think that we owe that to ourselves, to do things that we enjoy, to not be burnt out by work. Because I mean, if you burn out, you're not going to provide optimal care. You're not going to provide as efficient care. So I don't view that as a negative. I think people tend to think that makes them look selfish if they're taking me time or taking this time off to do something. And I think that we need to do a better job of promoting individual mental health and care.
Gotcha. Awesome. In total agreement with you on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So follow up for that, I guess, what advice would you give to yourself as a young athletic trainer? You just graduated school again.
Yeah.
I know we've kind of talked about a couple things throughout the course of our chat here.
Mm-hmm.
Anything in particular where it's like, oh, I wish I knew that right when I was coming out, or I should have done that.
Yeah.
Something.
I think the two big ones are to check your ego, for sure, and then they kind of go along together well in terms of just utilize your resources, be a part of a team in the sense that I think a lot of young athletic trainers, and I was this person 100%, and I struggled mightily coming out of undergrad in that I wanted to prove myself. I got a new job. I thought I was everything that I was going to do was the right way to do it. And I fought with some people because I didn't want to be told what to do. And I wanted to do whatever I could to prove to people that I was a competent athletic trainer. So I did. I got in some, I don't want to call them altercations, but disagreements with some of the coaches I've worked, some of the other athletic trainers I worked with, because I wanted to do things my way. And I struggled, and at the end of that, it was one of the hardest experiences of my life, but it was also probably one of the biggest learning experiences. Is one, you don't have to know everything 100% of the time. You don't, like, it's okay to admit to people that, you know what, I may not know this, or to lean on, whether it's a mentor or another healthcare professional, or, I mean, even like there are certain opportunities where you get to work with rehabbing an athlete back to play. And it's beneficial to include your sport coaches, your strength and conditioning coaches, because in a way they are experts at what they're doing. So they're going to know things better than you do. So utilizing them in terms of the rehab process, the return to play process, rather than you see a lot of people fighting with certain coaches because they think that this needs to be done this way. And it's in disagreement where, and I was there, it was going to be my way, start to finish. And that just never goes well. So for a young professional, I get trying to earn your place, but you also have to kind of temper it with leaving your ego at the door, because your ego is going to crush you every time.
Right. We'll kind of change gears a little bit here with this next question, but what has been the most influential resource you found so far in your career? I know that my time here with you, you've taught me a lot of different techniques, and especially a little more PRI stuff, but is there anything that, whether it be a book, whether it be a course, or could be anything really, that you found really influential for you?
Yeah, I do. I love the PRI stuff. I utilize quite a bit. I've only taken 2 of the primary courses. I look to take the the third, and then start moving into some of their secondary ones. So I love that stuff. I love the BFR, but I think my favorite resource is actually just people. And when I say that, trying to interact, network with as many people as you can, because it's a good way of just staying up to date with what others are doing, because you're never going to be the leader and forefront with literally everything that you do. So Twitter, I think, is a great resource for that. There are a lot of negatives about Twitter, don't get me wrong. But if you follow the right people, you can kind of see where healthcare is advancing, and kind of stay up to date with that. But also, as you network with other people, I think a lot of people think networking and they're like, oh, it's going to help you get another job. It's going to help you advance your career, which it can. It absolutely does. But you also get the opportunity to talk to, for me, I can talk to let's say, a soccer athletic trainer at just Missouri or wherever, and kind of see what they're doing, some insight that they've had. They've come up with some new, or they've seen some new treatment techniques for a shoulder or an elbow or whatever, and kind of dig a little bit more and find out what new is going on, and just staying in touch with those people, because they serve as mentors. It's great to be able to bounce ideas off of other people and kind of really see where the profession's growing from there. So I love talking to people. Any chance. That was one of the biggest things I liked about working with track and field, is you have all these athletic trainers packed into one facility. It gives you the opportunity to kind of go talk and see what other schools are doing, see what other people are doing. And you find a lot of people are having similar issues to you. And maybe they've solved them, or maybe they have another way of thinking through them, or maybe you can help them out with some of the issues that they're having. So I think that the more we can talk as a community, obviously you're bound by HIPAA and not giving away specific things about athletes, but we're able to help each other out a lot more than I think a lot of people realize.
Right. All right. Final question for you. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right. With it being National Athletic Training Month, I think this is a great question.
Yeah.
But what does being an athletic trainer mean to you?
What is it? Oh man. I have the opportunity to get to help people, and I love that, especially at this level where a lot of our athletes that come through, they're still maturing as individuals. So not only are you able to provide health care to them, but you can also help them in terms of developing into adults, and just kind of being there from start to finish through that process is incredibly rewarding. Not just rehabbing an ankle injury back to being on the play, but helping an 18-year-old kid get to be a 22, 23, and then seeing them as they get older and move on with their lives and have families. That's incredibly rewarding, and that's probably about my favorite part of the job every day.
Awesome. You summed that up perfectly. In closing, anything else that you want to share with us? And I guess people want to reach out, where can they find you? Do you have a Twitter?
Yeah, I do have a Twitter. You probably won't see me tweet too much of my own stuff. I do retweet things that I like. I'll go on and like things that I like. But if people send me a message or send me a tweet, I almost always try to get back to them too. So my Twitter handle is Matarazzo-ATC, MATARAZZO-ATC.
We'll throw that up on the episode sheet as well.
Perfect. I'm on Instagram as well. That's not as much professional as much as it's. I just like to post a lot of pictures about food. I do like to eat. I like to cook. And then my contact information is on our Vanderbilt website as well. Like I said, I try to respond to emails as much as I can too. I rarely do I just discard something without at least acknowledging it. So feel free to reach out. Try to be whatever help I can.
Perfect. Well, we'll let you go, Chris. So thank you for your time, and we might have to do a follow-up later on. So thank you again, and happy National Athletic Training Month.
Thank you, Austin. You too.